Arlington City Council, September 17th, 6:30 p.m. I'm Rich Nagel, I'm mayor, and I will be presiding at this meeting. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome everyone. We will have roll call. Councilmember Highland.
Here.
Councilmember Cowell.
Here.
Councilmember Hattlestead.
Here.
Councilmember Yashewski.
Here.
And Councilmember Batcher.
Here.
All council members are present. Also at the table in front here, to my left, is City Administrator Pat Melvin. To my right, City Attorney Ross Arneson. Also joining us this evening, I'll take him first tonight, Kurt May, representing the enterprise. I don't think I've ever done that in first position. You're number one with me. Kirby Weckworth, Maintenance Supervisor. Newlywed James Noxon. Welcome.
Still smiling.
Yeah. Police Chief Pedersen, welcome. Matt Johnson with Ninkasi. And also, we have someone in the audience that I think I'm going to let Pat introduce her right now.
Sure. I'm very happy to let you know that Laura Dykoff just started with administration today. So Laura brings a great wealth of experience working for a law office, and prior to that working for TSC, working a little bit in HR and in some different areas. So we're very fortunate to have her start with us, and she'll be working 32 hours a week. But we've asked her, and she's been very receptive to working more hours because Annie will soon be going out on leave. So she's spending a lot of time training with Annie and doing a great job. I think she's gonna be a wonderful fit for administration. So we're very happy to have her on board, and look forward to all the possibilities that are out there, having sufficient staff.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, council, for all your support in getting that position, so, thank you.
Okay, with that taken care of, are there any additions or corrections in the agenda? I believe I had one on the back here. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, under the consent agenda, the minutes are not ready from the September 4th meeting. We're going to scratch that for this evening. And then just a point of information, that item 13 on the back under new business, City Administrator Melvin was trying to have some of the people that actually worked on the housing study come and present it. They were unable to attend, so City Administrator Melvin and Amy Newsom will be taking care of going through that with us at that time if Amy is here. Otherwise, we'll just keep moving it down to further down in new business until she arrives. Okay, with that taken care of, would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda
I'll second.
as amended.
This would be the entire agenda. Yeah. Okay, and second by Mr. Hattlestead?
Yes.
Motion by Councilmember Highland, second by Councilmember Hattlestead to approve the agenda and the consent agenda. No, I'm mixed up. Approve the agenda as presented, part of which is the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That is carried. All right, item 4, the consent agenda this evening would consist of 3 items then. Approval of the bills, approval of to close a portion of 2nd Avenue Northwest during the tractor ride benefit for Darren Schultz on Saturday, September 29th. And lastly, approval of the Salvation Army Heat Share Program Agreement. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Cowell, second by Councilmember Highland to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Are there any people in the audience that wish to address the council this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to announcements.
Council members, first item that I have for announcements is that the Arlington Farmers Market is continuing to meet. Unfortunately, today, due to the rain, they did have to cancel, but they will be on schedule for next week, Monday, from 4 to 6:30 here at the Arlington Community Center at the west parking lot. So they've had a good year, and hopefully individuals will continue to show up to help them finish on a good note. The second item is a tractor ride benefit for Darren Schultz on Saturday, September 29th. Registration is from 8 in the morning till 10 at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, located here in Arlington at 101 West Chandler Street. Third announcement is the Arlington Citywide Garage Sale scheduled for September 22nd and 23rd. Please contact Angela Pagan at a_01_Angela at hotmail.com or ampagan, PAGGEN, at progrowth.com. And what she has provided us with is a copy of a registration form to go ahead and announce what items you will be selling at the Citywide Garage Sale on September 22nd and 23rd. Item D, the Arlington Fire and Ambulance Open House. This is for township members as well as the council. Will be on Wednesday, September 26th at 6 p.m. for an evening lunch to show their appreciation for our ongoing support. Item E, the Arlington Fire Department's Fall Block Party is scheduled for Saturday, October 6th from 5 to 7 p.m.
12 a.m.
Says 12, okay.
12 a.m.
They will actually have the dinner from 5 to 7 p.m. The event will run, thank you, from 5 to 12 p.m. So meal and music at the Heritage Building at the Sibley County Fairgrounds. Next item is the Zura Shriners. They'll have a potato pancake breakfast. This is the 15th annual breakfast. This will be held on Sunday, October 7th from 8:30 in the morning to 12:30 at the Arlington Community Center. Next item is League of Minnesota Cities regional meetings, which will be held on October 4th in St. Cloud and October 5th in Mankato. Council members, if you're interested, there was additional information provided in your packet. If you would like to participate, please simply let administration know and we will go ahead and get you registered for the event. There's a variety of different locations. I included St. Cloud and Mankato because of the close proximity. The agenda for the event includes talking about economic vitality, legislative update, league leadership, and then moving from conflict to effective governance and problem solving. So that training again will be on October 4th in St. Cloud and October 5th in Mankato.
That's a one-day deal.
Correct.
I believe it's mainly in the afternoon into the evening. There's nothing in the morning.
Yep, I believe the time is from 2 to 7. So. Next item is the driver improvement program is being offered on October 29th. The 4-hour refresher course is on October 29th from 5:30 to 9:30. Or if you have not previously taken the course, there will be a first time lesson offered on November 28th and the 29th. from 5:30 to 9:30. So you would attend 2 sessions if it's your first time. That will be held here at the Arlington Community Center, and individuals who take the class may qualify for discounts on their car insurance. Anybody who's interested is welcome to contact 1-888-234-1294 or email www.minnesotasafetycenter.org to register. Last item that we have is the Arlington Chamber of Commerce Fright Night on Wednesday, October 31st from 5:30 to 7 on Main Street from Highway 5 to First Avenue on both sides of the street. That is it for announcements.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I might
Yes.
ask, Mr. Melvin, I just looked up the dates on that League of Minnesota, and it's the 25th of October in Mankato.
Oh, goodness. The 2 dropped off.
It
Oh,
didn't-
sure.
Thanks, Jim.
Or is it the 17th of October in Bemidji?
Okay, a correction then, October
Yep.
25th in Mankato. All right, thank you for the announcements, so we'll move on to communications.
Under communications, we have the August building report. We had a variety. Looks like 14 building permits that were pulled. The one that was the most expensive, valued at $20,000, was for a residential residing job that was done in Arlington. Otherwise, the majority of them are in that less than $10,000 price range. So, are there any questions on the information that was provided in your packet?
Okay, if not, thank you. And we'll move on to item 8, Police Department update. Chief Pedersen. Good evening.
Hello. Hey there. Just to go over the statistics for the last month. Vicki had put together a few. Come across with you. There we go. Vicki had put together a few statistics just in comparison from 2017 to present. I think the statistics themselves are pretty clear. I don't know if there's any questions that you guys have on any of the numbers that are up there. If you've been noticing at all down lower on the page, we've been having a few calls that are actually dual crimes, I guess, or dual topics. So we started adding the, there may be a burglary that's involved, but then a domestic with that. So there's been some other things that we respond to a call, but yet there might be multiple charges that go with some of the things. Looking at that.
So all these at the bottom are dual? In other words, this is part of this one?
And I am corrected because that is not the case. There is not a resident watch that turned into an accident.
Or a threat that turned into a death?
However, right, she has been detailing some of these as dual offenses as well. And I guess I'm not seeing that they have them listed on here. So it's something that you will be seeing, I guess, then in the next one. We had talked about it. So there's times where we end up with a traffic stop, but the traffic stop is also a driving after revocation citation. There's a traffic stop that may end up being a DUI, or a traffic stop that may end up being a canine sniff. And I think that's important that you guys see some of those other things as they're added in as well. So that's what is going to be added to here if they're not separated out in a different manner right now. So August 2018, we had 353 calls. August 2017, there was 125. So just to put it in perspective, we are doing a little bit more call load and self-initiated activity as well, just to stay busy. Some other statistics from January to August of 2018, there was 2,056 calls, and January to August of 2017, there was 1,692. So we are up in staying busy. Just to touch base on a few other things, the Arlington Police Department, Kurt is going to be putting an ad in the newspaper for a National Take Back Day. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but we have been asked by the community a couple different times if we could take prescription medications from seniors, well, from anybody for that matter, and we do not have a local medication drop-off box. So what we're going to do is partner with the National Take Back Day. They have designated one day to be Saturday, I think it's October 27th, as the national day, and I asked him if it would be a big deal if we would do it for the Monday to Saturday, collect them, and then we can drop them off at the incinerary location. So we're going to be participating in that. Kurt is going to have that, like I said, in the newspaper, so that's kind of one of the things to come up. League of Minnesota Cities came and they did a risk management audit kind of the department, and the results for that should be coming back probably the end of next week. He really didn't give any indication, yay or nay, as to if we were somewhat good or somewhat not. Gave a few suggestions, like a vent in the evidence room. I think I've mentioned that before. Eye wash station near the gun cleaning solvents. I guess that's a mandatory deal for OSHA, which I've ordered a new one now. He sat down and reviewed some of the policies, and he's also requested a few copies of things. So we'll be having some discussion about that and some more follow-up with the League of Minnesota. They're not doing it to enforce anything. They're doing it as a liability. So they're trying to minimize anything. If they catch anything that we could correct or make better, they'll be providing suggestions. So hope to get back to you on that. We have one thing I'd like to just toot our horn a little bit. We did a search warrant here in town, and we ended up getting some cooperation from a lot of neighbors. So I just want to mention that any other neighbors that are seeing any drug activity, to please continue reporting it to us. It is very beneficial. We were successful in one particular investigation that we were working on. So again, if you're seeing comings and goings late at night, suspicious odd cars in the neighborhood, please keep reporting those. We're moving forward with our investigations and hopefully going to clean up some neighborhoods too. We have a truancy ordinance that Ross is going to be working on. The school has asked us how that is developing, and I think we're going to be hopefully getting that together soon, and then presenting that to you guys to
What ordinance is that, John?
be for truancy.
Oh, okay.
The school has some state statutes they can work with, but if we could be a little bit more stringent on the habitual kids that are deciding to wake up late and not come in on time and everything else, we could maybe be a little bit more proactive with it, and it doesn't have to reach a criminal level. So it's one thing that we're working on. We're going to be assisting with the tractor ride. That's coming up, and the other events that were mentioned earlier. School parking signs. I wasn't here at the last meeting to see if Kirby had touched base on that, but the signs that were put up around the school for parking, they are excellent. I think they're being very effective, and we've had a lot of good comments from the school bus drivers about how things have cleared up the ins and outs, and they're looking forward, I think, to the addition of the speed limit signs, which we're also talking about and trying to figure out the location of where they're going to go.
You had success getting the change, because we've been trying for all the years I've been on council to get this lower speed extended through town and you've had luck?
Oh, no,
Oh.
no. I've not had luck.
Work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
Oh, you're talking about Highway 5?
Yeah, regarding the Highway 5,
Yeah.
initially, what I was talking about was reduction of the speed limit around the school and just doing it like a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit during school. No, the Highway 5 is still gonna be a work in progress. I'm waiting to hear when they're gonna put up the, what do they call that?
The counter or
Yeah, the
whatever,
counter.
traffic counter.
The vehicle counter thing. So, and then additionally, I received an email just today saying that most of the material is in for the garage, and they'll be starting that project as soon as the door comes in, which I'm guessing we should know more by Friday. So, one other topic that I have, actually two more. We have a couple of problem homes that we've had in town as far as having things cleaned up, and there could be a potential for hoarding going on. And I guess I'd just like to throw out there that the Civc County Human Services offers a program. It's called 7 Principles of Healthy Homes. And we have some information down at the police department if anybody's interested in it, but the county is able and willing to help us with some house cleanups if we need to. They'll supply a dumpster if the criteria are met. So just keeping that in mind. I think it's called Healthy Homes. It's Meeker, McLeod, and Sibley County. And again, more information can be had at the Human Services or at the police department. On a side note, we have started doing an EMT training, and James is already an EMT, and myself and Sarah are looking at getting EMT certification as well. And we're looking at doing that. It was offered to us from Mark Anderson with the paramedic service. So we had started last Monday, 2 days a week for the next about 3 months to get our EMT licensing. Mark came to us and he had asked if we'd have an interest in kind of helping to support the ambulance service with their shortage of personnel. And with that, initially my thoughts were, that's a lot of extra duties. And as he presented it, we started talking a little bit more, and details started coming up of other agencies that are doing it as well. Police departments that are actually paramedics, and they're dual responding to calls. Obviously, they're in bigger communities with more resources. But as we were talking about it, some other ideas had come up about what the police department could offer. Number one would be, we're on duty more with a regular routine than what their paramedics or what their EMTs are. And I don't know if right now is the time to get into a lot of that, but Pat, was there an addition to the notes that I had given for a proposal for EMT police?
I don't recall seeing.
Okay. I have a copy of it here, and I can go run and make a copy to get it to you guys by the end of the night, because I'd like to have you consider, take a look at it, get it included with the packet. But Cliff Note version of it is, law enforcement is working, and we would like to try and extend it to more coverage with the police department. And with more coverage of the police department, we could offer services along with the ambulance crew. So what I understand is what they're moving towards right now is a coverage of 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, so 6A to 6P. And during that time, they're having a paramedic, and then they're looking to fill the EMT positions. And if we are able to be EMT certified, we would be able to fill that EMT position for them, in which case the paramedic, the ambulance, could respond to any call at the ALS level instead of the basic life support system where it would be just 2 EMTs working. As we were talking about it more and more, Mark has got some really good ideas as far as how that scheduling could look and how it could work. There are questions come up right away. You know, if you're responding to a medical call, what happens if you respond to a police call? And one of the things that we've talked about is it's built into the paramedics' scheduling already that they have backup. So if there is a medical call, they always have somebody on backup that can take that second rig and respond. If the police department's already working and we're not in the middle of something, we can respond to that call. The paramedic that's on duty by himself, instead of waiting, can drive the ambulance to the scene. And as a police officer, we can then kind of change roles and be their assistant. I'd like to get everybody's input on that probably at a different time and see what other ideas could be brought up. But we could then be trained as the EMT to help them, and we could drive the ambulance. I guess you can't drive the ambulance unless you are working with them or you have a mutual aid agreement, which we would have to develop as well. But having that ability as EMTs, we would be able to provide a faster medical response, which time is life. And the sooner that you can get oxygen or stop a bleed or start cardiac type of treatments, the better chance any victim has in surviving. So Mark has got me pretty well bought into helping out as much as we can. As EMTs, I've talked to James and I've talked to Sarah, and all three of us are willing to also help with the on-call schedule that they're having difficulties filling, whether it would be the regular shifts on our days off, or whether it would be as standby or backup EMTs for other times where they get busy. We certainly don't want it to become a priority of our duties, but I think we certainly could look at filling in and helping to strengthen that EMT response, especially here in Arlington. With the combination of what they're trying to accomplish in Gaylord, which is a whole nother discussion. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that because you've had lots of discussions with it. But with the development of a Gaylord, we would not be looking at covering, outside of our jurisdiction, a very large area. They're looking at expanding that whole region, and we would be focused on this area and being able to respond and take calls closer to the Arlington side, unless it was our days off. And then we could certainly provide any kind of coverage that they would need, but that would be outside of our police responsibilities. So the way it would look is we'd respond to a call, we'd be probably first on scene because whoever's coming with the ambulance is either going to be coming from Gaylord or from the shop. Once we're there, we would help. We'd drive the ambulance to the Arlington Hospital. We're not going to be doing Waconia transports or anything like that. And then we could turn around and we could immediately be unloading the person and dropped back off at our squad car within a very reasonable period of time. If there was a call that came up, we'd also be looking at having county maybe be a backup for us, or we would set up a schedule where myself or another officer would be able to take that backup, I guess, for lack of a better word. But for the most part, when they're doing these runs, you'll hear them get on the radio and they're at the residence, they're loaded, they go to the hospital, and they're clearing it back in the barn, the shop, in a very short period of time. So I think it could be something that's pretty functional. In addition to that, there has been some talk that if we are going to be helping with the paramedics, we would also be saving them a great deal of money. And here comes my sales pitch.
I knew it was coming.
Yep. And here comes the sales pitch. And I'm gonna start with right now on the post board. There's 21 positions open for full-time police officers, and I have 3 applicants for 2 part-time positions, and they are all brand new right out of school. And I'm sure they have applications at every other agency of those 21 at least that are on the post board, looking for full-time employment as well. My frustration, my hesitation in filling those part-time positions has been, as soon as I get them filled, I'm at a risk of losing that person at the investment of anywhere from 40 hours to 100 hours of my time doing field training officer and the cost that goes with that. So I guess where I'm at is the cost that the EMS side is talking about, it could save them anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 is what Mark was estimating. And we could get some more hard numbers on that as we start talking about this a little bit more. The cost savings would come in many different things. It wouldn't just be hours. We'd have to be looking at the big picture of the EMS cost. So I'll let him explain that. He's far more detailed and knowledgeable in how that looks. But on the police department side of it, if we were to turn around and look at the hours it would take for me to train each of these part-time officers, we're at a considerable investment in time, uniforms, mainly time, my time. And I just don't know that that's a cost savings. So then in my mind, I went one step further and I went to the school and I talked to the superintendent and the principal, both of which were very supportive, and they said that I could tell you that they were very supportive in a school resource position. They couldn't commit to anything financially, but they said it would definitely be open to discussion come next budget, where we could maybe work some things out. I have no idea on numbers on that. I don't want to throw anything out without them talking to the school board or anything else, but it sounds promising, at least in my eyes, where we have a initial $20,000 investment in some part-timers that we talked about could be cost beneficial to the city. We have some money that could come from EMS, and if we're close, would we at all consider a full-time officer instead of 2 part-timers, with the possibility of adding an officer into the schedule, which is an additional 80 hours per pay period. The 80 hours could easily be filled up into the school resource position. They would add even more hours to the EMT EMS service as a backup, as a full-time, or not full-time, but as a backup and as a responding EMT. And I just thought it sounded like a pretty great idea. It sounds, to me, financially more responsible than just dropping money on part-timers and turning around and running kind of a revolving door. So I have a little bit of just a kind of what I just told you written down. I'll get copies of it to each of you. I wanted to throw it out. We have talked about it a little bit with the police committee, and I kind of got the okay to say, would we be interested in looking at this? So if it's all right with you, I'd still like to hold off on any commitment with the part-time position. I guess I'd like some consideration that, if at all possible, some money maybe be set aside for a position for a full-time. Excuse me. And we'll try and get some numbers to you as soon as I possibly can, as far as sitting down with Mark and putting a little bit more detail together on it. And that's all I have.
So the officer, if we were to put on the 3rd officer, would be our officer that would allow more for the school as far as the school resource officer, and work with the EMT to save funds there. So if the school in their next financial budget were to kick some in, plus our savings from the EMT or the city with the ambulance service, that could all easily go to offset a nice chunk of the full-time officer.
It would get us much closer, and when you weigh in, like I said, the training time, at my hourly salary, I mean, that ends up being pretty redundant to every person that we have to go through again. And I'm just anticipating. It's all hypothetical. I mean, we might potentially get that one part-timer that wants to be a part-time for the rest of his, and I don't have anything more than one time and we're done.
But that likelihood is,
Yeah, not gonna happen.
I could win the lottery tomorrow too, but I'm not planning on spending any of it.
Right. Yeah.
I gotta buy a ticket
I'd have
first.
to buy a ticket too. Yeah, so
It's
it,
certain of mine that the part-times aren't gonna fill our need. And for just those reasons, because they are investing so little and getting very little back in part-time, whereas if there's full-time, they've got experience in with EMT, with your ideas, EMT, working with kids at school, things that work on our priority list that we wanted you to do anyway. So I see just nothing but good coming out of this, and if we can get the dollars arranged, boy, it sounds super to me.
My fear is, and Pat and I had talked about it too, is, you know, pulling money from someplace and trying to balance that. I understand it's a budget time right now. I'm hoping that before it's solidified, now would be a good time to maybe slide in some cushion for that. I know that the way the 800 megahertz radio tower is looking, it looks like we may not have to spend as much as what we had anticipated, and I just think that cost and the benefit back to the community, I'd be able to fill more shift hours. It would be a much easier vacation. It would be a much easier, or filling for vacations and sick time. You can't depend on a part-timer at the drop of a hat to turn around and switch a shift, where you can count on your full-timers, at least the ones we have right now. They've been great about filling everything and making it work. The school part of it, I think, is huge. We'd be able to put some time in there and have some familiar face every day at every activity, and I don't know exactly how that works right now as far as the school district being split with Gaylord. I wouldn't be opposed to being able to share some of that, but you know, at this time, I'm just looking for us, looking for Sibley East with the high school aged kids. I think that's where a majority of it needs to be spent, but we're open for suggestions.
How much, when we're talking the budget, and not that I'm against this at all, but if you're talking of us maybe setting some aside in the budget, what is that dollar amount? Because I don't know.
I would have to lean on Pat a little bit for that. I would guess 65.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, in that ballpark.
I wouldn't want to set 30 aside and then we're 35 short and we have to kibosh it all.
Well, and my comparison would be, we were looking at setting about 20 aside for the part-time. We were looking at, you know, the costs that would go with the training that would go with that as well. So,
You're halfway there.
and if we're able to get some money, and I just talked to Mark again today, and again, it's not finalized, and it's not on paper, but it sounds very promising that he's anticipating there could be some flex in his funds, because we would be able to fill a lot of the on-call time that they'd be paying for somebody. We'd be able to fill some of the call hours that, and
I guess I would just advise the council to be somewhat cautious, because I know with Mark's ambulance budget, we have previously funded that out of the general fund in part, so they don't cover all their costs there. And I mean, I think our police department, I think John, I think James and Sarah are doing a wonderful job, and that people are recognizing the difference in terms of the way law enforcement is doing. I heard that in my marketing hometown Arlington about how delighted they are with the police department. And I mean, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, the Dave Downer, but I do just want to say that you know, one of the things that we'll talk about later as we look at the housing study is, you know, the fact that people want to find jobs in Arlington, that they want us to attract businesses. You know, we're looking at possibly acquiring some land for some economic development, some different things like that. Not to say that John's issues aren't very valid, and making the police department even better is a goal we all have. But just, you know, let's take a look at the numbers and let's see where everything falls out, and let's try and, you know, address a variety of issues. And, but yeah, I appreciate John bringing these issues forward, and I did talk with Mark, who wishes he could have been here tonight to support John. And he certainly welcomes if any of you want to contact him. Yeah, I think there's benefit to, obviously, our police department, you know, going above and beyond, which they are doing in terms of taking on the additional task of now also being EMTs, which is wonderful. So, but it would be helpful for us to wait and see where all those numbers are. We'll be approving a preliminary budget this next week, and at that time, we'll find out where the numbers really pan out, and then we'll start kind of whittling down on that to get to what is an acceptable levy increase to you as a council. And that's where that number certainly should be considered, you know, where John falls into that with his additional position.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any questions for
I don't
Chief
know,
Pedersen?
well, about 100, but yeah, they can wait.
We're good?
Yeah, I can wait till,
Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
get more stuff.
Thank you. Okay, let the minutes read that EDA Director Newsom has arrived at the meeting at 7:14. We'll move on to ordinances. The first one is a second reading of ordinance number 320. Let you introduce that topic.
The second reading of ordinance 320 is an ordinance amending the 2014 Arlington Comprehensive Plan for the future land use map pertaining to the property at the northeast quadrant, the intersection of Trunk Highway 5 and CASA 9. Basically, what you're doing here is, this is a request to go ahead and simply approve changing what was put into place for planning in the city of Arlington. So this is the first step in terms of moving forward with rezoning the Ninkasi property located on the southwest side of Arlington there.
And I believe, you know, with this being the first one, this is a statutory requirement that any time that a comprehensive plan is amended, that it be done before anything else. In other words, in this case, done before any zoning change occurs. So this is the second reading of that then. We will take up, there is a resolution further down to actually enact that change. Are there any comments or discussions in regard to the second reading of the ordinance to change the comprehensive plan future land use map?
Well, I read all 10 pages of it, and I'm still confused. No, it makes sense.
Okay,
And I believe the planning commission was okay with it also.
they were, yes, yes. All right, if there are no further questions, that will constitute the second reading of ordinance number 320, or an ordinance amending the 2014 Arlington Comprehensive Plan future land use map pertaining to the property described. Moving on to second reading of ordinance number 321.
Associated with amending the future land use map, we also are going to be taking a look today at the proposed Ninkasi property. We do have Matt Johnson from Ninkasi here in the audience if you have any questions. At this point, the city council is being asked to approve amending that property, which is currently zoned B1, and making it I1, light industrial, which is what is needed for the proposed hydroponic hops production facility to go into that parcel located on the southwest side of town. Parcel number 31.0884.000, what was at one time described as the hotel property.
Okay, any comments on this one? This is a second reading, and there is a resolution addressing this to finalize it further down under resolutions. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, this will constitute the second reading of ordinance number 321, an ordinance amending chapter 31, section 4, subdivision 1, official zoning map of the city code, and that would change the zoning from B1 to I1. Okay, moving on to resolutions. Resolution A, approve or deny Resolution 56-2018, recognizing National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day.
Council members, this resolution was emailed to us by Diana Kelly. She represents the founder and executive director of Infants Remembered in Silence Incorporated, IRIS. And basically she shared with us that she would like to have us pass this resolution in recognition of the day, that there is absolutely no financial request associated with this, but that this gives individuals, bereaved parents who have had children die during pregnancy and early childhood, an opportunity to participate in a 7 p.m. candle lighting on October 15th. So the other proclamations that have been approved include 1988, President Ronald Reagan proclaimed October as National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. In 2001, there was a House resolution from the 107th Congress, first session, and also in 2006, there was a House resolution. So this was submitted, and we felt that it would be appropriate for the Arlington City Council to go ahead and honor the request by passing the approved resolution, which is item 56, 2018.
Would someone wish to introduce the resolution?
I would love to do that. I'd like to introduce Resolution 56, 2018, recognizing National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day.
Second.
My dad, that's October 15th at 7 p.m.
Okay, motion by, or Councilmember Highland actually introduced Resolution 56-2018 and was seconded by Councilmember Hattlestead. That is a resolution recognizing National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day. We will vote by roll call vote. Councilmember Cowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Hattlestead.
Yes.
Councilmember Yashewski.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes.
All members voted in favor, none against. The resolution is adopted. Next would be a resolution dealing with Resolution 57-2018, and this would officially amend the comprehensive plan, of which we had just recently the second reading a few minutes ago.
I'll introduce Resolution 57, 2018, amending the 2014 Arlington Comprehensive Plan, future land use map pertaining to the property at the northeast quadrant of the intersection of 5 and County State 8 Highway 9.
Okay.
Second.
Councilmember Batchor introduced the following resolution, that being Resolution 57-2018, amending the 2014 Arlington Comprehensive Plan future land use map pertaining to property at the northeast quadrant of the intersection of Trunk Highway 5 and County State Aid Highway number 9. It was seconded by Councilmember Cowell. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call vote. Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Cowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes.
Councilmember Yashewski.
Yes.
Councilmember Hattlestead.
Yes.
Switch the camera so they can see my smiling face. There.
All members voted in favor, none opposed. The resolution is adopted. Next resolution is Resolution 58-2018. This one deals with the actual rezoning of that property.
I'll introduce resolution 58-2018, amending chapter 31, section 4, subdivision 1, official zoning map of the city code pertaining to the property at the northeast quadrant of the intersection of Trunk Highway 5 and County State Aid Highway 9.
Second.
Resolution 58-2018 was introduced by Councilmember Cowell, second by Councilmember Hattlestead, and it reads, amending Chapter 31, Section 4, Subdivision 1, official zoning map of the city code pertaining to property at the northeast quadrant of the intersection of Trunk Highway 5, County State Aid Highway 9. Is there discussion? This again would change the zoning from B1 to I1. Hearing none, vote by roll call. Councilmember Yashewski.
Yes.
Councilmember Hattlestead.
Yes.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes.
Councilmember Cowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
All council members voting in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. The next is the resolution dealing with the conditional use permit and site plan approval, and that is resolution 59-2018.
Is this where we can discuss the plan for the trees on the south side of the building facing the highway, or highway?
This is where that can be brought up, yes.
Okay,
And I would prefer to have it done before anyone introduces the resolution. So, open to discussion on the conditional use. Did you have something specific in mind, Councilmember Hattlestead?
I didn't have anything specific in mind,
Okay.
other than I know when I sat in the planning and zoning meeting, that Matt Johnson didn't wanna plant a rainforest there. And I think it was kinda left in the air of, I'm not sure if anybody knows what's expected of Matt as far as trees, quantity, size. Did you get any of that, Matt? Yes.
Yeah,
come up,
come up
please.
and use the microphone, please. This is Matt
I'm just
Johnson with
concerned
Ninkasi.
That maybe we're being so restrictive in planting more trees than maybe needed and putting more of a financial burden on you that is maybe necessary.
Right, I guess my understanding from the Planning and Zoning Commission was that, the landscaping plan, was an area that they wanted to have, some further input. That they wanted us to, amend that particular plan sheet, to show, greater detail of landscaping along the Melcher property to the north, as well as then, on the south side along Highway 5. I guess, just to reiterate a point that I guess I've tried to make every time that we've been here, is that, especially as it relates along the Melcher property line, I guess, we want to be good neighbors, and that's an area where, we want to make a barrier that, is sufficient, that is going to satisfy them. I guess one area of concern for us just was, what extent, of landscaping, is the planning commission going to, require of us along Highway 5? I mean, I guess that's not to say that we're, completely against doing any type of landscaping, but, obviously the way things were left at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, they were requesting that we resubmit the plans, and, it's not necessarily clear, what is going to satisfy, them as far as the landscaping and, at what cost.
Yeah, because what I'm concerned about is if they come back to you and want you to do the same thing on the south side of the building as you will do on the north to the residential area, and come back and say, well, we want 10, 12-year-old pine trees, good God, that's a lot of money.
Right.
And I don't know that we really
Right, I guess that would
to
be,
require you to do that.
I mean, I guess that would be a concern of ours, as well. I mean, it's one thing if, we're required to plant, I guess I'm not an arborist, but, like a smaller tree as opposed to, you know, some really large tree. Plus, it's my understanding that, you know, when you do try and replant larger trees, that, you know, it makes it harder to, you know, keep them alive, and, you know, and that a lot of times, you know, smaller trees are actually easier to, you know, to maintain, and, you know, obviously a smaller tree is, you know, less of a cost burden on us as well.
And how long is the building, like from along Highway 5? What would be the length of the building?
So that's 415 feet. One of the one of the things that we were looking at, there is sort of there's a little bit of MnDOT has the right of way is a little bit different down along the intersection of 9 and 5. There's sort of a blind spot area there where you can't build, or you know, you need to be set back. So you know, that would kind of impact a little bit where we could maybe start, you know, with that vegetation along Highway 5. You know, our thought is that you know, because of that, you know, the barrier maybe wouldn't begin until sort of the gravel turnaround that we're proposing, and you know, that could run then along that way. So that would maybe make, I guess I don't know the exact number. I haven't measured it. So that would shorten the distance somewhat as far as, you know, what the vegetative barrier would be on that south side.
I mean, I'm sure you're gonna put some kind of signage or something on your building on the south side, or no? Or?
You know, I guess we didn't propose anything, but I mean, in the future, we were thinking that, you know, we would probably have some signage along 9 where our driveway is proposed to be there, and then probably something, you know, sort of down near the corner of 5 and 9, just so when people are coming in, you know, they know what they're looking at. I mean, I guess I've always thought that that's kind of interesting when you're driving into a town and there's, you know, some interesting building, and well, what exactly is that? So that was sort of our, you know, our longer term plan. You know, that's something that we would probably look at doing, you know, when we complete the building with the second phase.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna put stuff on the south side, why cover that up? I mean, why wouldn't we want people to know what that is? Or I get the north side.
Right, and I think
understand
the
that.
logic behind it is softening, and it's a gateway to our town, so that was their stance on it, how they felt about it in the meeting. And I guess I feel something should go there. I don't wanna be specific. I don't wanna say that it has to be coniferous, which is in here under 5B. I'd like to leave it up to whatever the business wants to put there, and what's suitable for traffic. I mean, there can't be any, you know, blind spots as far as, it's kind of on a corner by an intersection and such too.
So actually, the MnDOT would have a little bit of control over how close to that corner you could come. I mean, they would just forbid it, basically.
I mean, potentially that's, you know, that's sort of my understanding, and, you know, actually during the site review, you know, Cynthia sent, you know, the plans to MnDOT just for that purpose, to make sure that, you know, even the driveway was, you know, far enough off of Highway 5. So, you know, I think they would probably have some say potentially, you know, especially if we were, you know, getting closer to the right of way with that.
Well, and you've kind of already shifted your building closer to Highway 5 than originally planned.
Yes,
correct?
yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of, the wiggle room then to put a bunch of vegetation or whatever there is kind of, it's maybe going to be limited a certain degree. I'm not sure. I just like to take the specific terms out, you know, under 5B where it says coniferous landscaping, if we could just
How about do coniferous and non-coniferous trees and shrubs? That opens
how
it up
about
to.
just take
Just
coniferous out and
right.
say landscaping treatment shall be, and the
That would
rest.
work too.
That way it can be, or it wouldn't have to be.
And you wanna have some identification for the business. So
Well, I mean,
you don't. and
That's
I-
up to them, I was just.
And I'm seeing right now trees and something behind him, and, you know, he's putting a beautiful building up, right?
it is.
I think it is.
So do I.
The other thing that we,
And you
that
wanna
the city,
see,
yeah, the other thing that the city has is our tree program or whatever too. So I mean, I would be more than excited if they would use our trees. I mean, they're not big to start, but
Well, it takes forever. Here's some, for what it's worth, department. I'm barely a used car dealer, much less a arborist, but over the last 30 years, what we found to work good in our yards are Austrian pines. And if you were to plant one every 35 feet, because they'll grow almost 2 feet a year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they grow fast, they fill out, and they're a good screen. You would plant on 400 and some feet, about 12 trees along, if you went 35 feet apart
Mm-hmm.
on one side. And you can get them planted in the ground, 3-4 foot trees for about $400. You know, so you'd have about $5,000 in
Right.
simple landscaping,
Yeah.
and put some small maples in between or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, you know.
I
It'll
know.
give you a good screen.
Right, I know the last time I was here, for the special meeting, you know, I went and just sort of looked around and I know that's what, Simstone did, you know, where they sort of alternated between, you know, some kind of pine tree and then, you know, they had some kind of, you know, it's like a maple or something and so,
Well, I think
mean, I
there's-
guess I think something like that, you know, is reasonable and, you know, we would certainly be, you know, willing to, you know, to conform to that.
Right. I think it's a valid thought that something should, you know, coniferous trees, that there is a place for them, because then you have your screening in winter and summer.
Mm-hmm.
If you just put all maple trees, then yeah, it's wonderful in summer, but winter you can look right through 'em.
Just some sticks.
Yeah, so I think a mixture, something like that, but I too agree that I don't think we should be any more restrictive than we possibly can.
So how can we incorporate that plan into the resolution?
I would just like to see coniferous being struck out of 5B.
Okay, but you have 4B also that it's talked about, so we need to
then
look at that also.
4B,
We can strike it on 5B, so just landscaping treatment then under 5B,
correct.
okay, and then 4B.
So 5B was talking about Highway 5.
Okay,
And I think 4B is talking about the north side, on the
Okay.
residential. So on that, I guess,
the Melcher side, yeah.
correct, on the north side, so.
So are you okay with it there, the coniferous, word coniferous?
I would say that we should strike it there too. I mean, I would imagine that you'll come up with a plan.
Okay,
You kind of feel where we're at, the council, I'm sure he'll bring a plan, landscape plan back that'll reflect how we're feeling.
so if we strike it there, it would read to illustrate placement of trees on the proposed berm. Strike the word coniferous.
Well, you could, why don't we do landscape treatment instead of trees?
Okay, landscape treatment, placement of.
Where are you looking
Yeah,
at?
4B.
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 Illustrate the placement of landscape treatment on the proposed berm? Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
Okay.
In both of those sections, 4B as well as 5B, it still has proposed landscaping shall be presented to the planning commission for approval prior to issuance of a final certificate of occupancy. So with the understanding that the planning committee is going to, you know, approve of whatever comes up, I don't think that should be an issue, should it?
Well, I guess
Well, they're
this
recommending
plan
that,
was an
so-
issue, and I think Mr. Johnson has a good idea of, or understanding of what we'd like to see. So my thought is, and I really don't like to go this avenue, but I will, if Mr. Johnson goes to planning and zoning with what we've discussed, and they still want him to plant a rainforest, I guess then he comes back to the council and we correct it. That would be my plan. Then, I know we're kind of but we're going against what the planning and zoning is doing here already, only with the trees. Because if Mr. Johnson has to go back to them and they say no, well, then we're right back to where we are right now. So we have to have the option to be able to override that decision.
How does that work?
Any comment? Is there any other?
Well, any committee is an advisory body only. Final authority always rests with the council.
Even for the issuance of the, what is it called?
Occupancy
Occupancy certificate?
That comes from the building inspector, doesn't it?
Darren, that's what.
Darren issues that.
Yeah.
So should that be struck out of there? Is that not, should that not?
Well, I guess if it's the council's, feeling that, you don't want the landscaping, to become an issue, or bounce back and forth, I guess my recommendation is to make a decision on that tonight and say, this is the way it's going to be. And, that might include then removing additional language from 4 and 5.
Well, I think it's practice that, additional plans or final plans come back to the planning and zoning committee. Correct, so. taking
Because they're the
that
ones
away-
that make sure they can, the
that they
conditional uses
conform.
are being conformed with.
Yep,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I still think that it should go there. I mean, but like you said, Tom, I mean, if it comes to a point where they're, being unreasonable, then, I mean, it would come back here.
Come back here.
And ultimately, they make a recommendation that gets sent here no matter
Right.
what, whether it's
Yeah.
positive or negative, and then we have the choice to
Yeah.
decide.
What I don't wanna see happen is what happened in the last month with numerous trips to planning and zoning. And I don't wanna have to see Mr. Johnson make numerous trips out here over, are we gonna put up 7 or 9 or 12 trees? I mean, that,
Right.
come on, everybody's got a busier life than that.
Right.
So I'm fine with sending it back to planning and zoning and have Mr. Johnson come up with a plan, present it to them, and if they can work it out wonderfully, and if they still want a rainforest, then I guess it's gonna come back to us and we're gonna have to decide.
My understanding is if we make these changes this evening, we can approve the resolution with changes that we've made. And the only problem would come up then is if the planning and zoning would refuse to order an issuance of, or a certificate of occupancy.
But if that's not their place anyhow, that's the building inspector's place, correct?
Yes, and that step, I think, comes about when the structure is completed. Basically, it's a final kiss of approval, allowing the building to be used. But maybe we're searching for a different term. Is it
That's what it says there.
prior to issuance? Final certificate of occupancy.
Occupancy for the structure seems to me to be more that the electrical is correct, the water, I
Not
mean,
hinging
yeah,
on
that's
landscaping.
true.
the essentials,
Yeah.
whereas landscaping appears to be more.
Property oriented.
Yeah. prior to issuance.
Mr. Mayor, I have two
Yes.
questions for Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
if I could. Did you put anything in your budget, in your building plans or anything for landscaping?
We do have a line item for
How much
for
did you
that.
figure you'd put in
Oh,
approximately? and I'll hold you to it.
I think, yeah, I maybe like 2,500 or something like that, 30,000 or something. I mean, primarily, we were looking at seeding the the property that wasn't included.
Yeah, you will have
in
some
the
grass to
building.
seed, won't you?
Yeah.
But is it
That
two
might-
phases too? So, I mean, is that part of the first phase before second phase, or?
I guess, our plan is that, as much as possible, we were going to seed, with the first phase, cause, obviously, there'd be some area where we wouldn't be able to, or we wouldn't be able to get terribly close, where we're gonna build the second phase, but, some of the space out towards the pond and, down towards Highway 5, we assumed that we would do that, either this fall or, in the spring then, so that was, would be grass.
Okay, the second question that I have is, if this gets bounced back and forth and we don't have an approve of the conditional use permit tonight, is that gonna put a bind on you on getting your ducks in a row to get the construction started? I mean, if we have to sit another month,
We
think
can make
there's-
changes in it tonight.
Yeah, I don't think there's.
We don't have to send it
gonna
back for
slow.
revision.
I think we should just make, as
We
Attorney
can make
Arneson
wording
said,
changes.
we
That's
just
what-
make a wording
You
change and
confirmed
be
that
done.
today.
Yes.
We can make wording changes and just go ahead.
Like
with
Ross
it.
said, you're the final
Yeah.
authority on it.
Like I said, we can make the wording changes tonight in the conditional use permit, in the resolution. It's when that certificate of occupancy, if the plans that you bring forward to them for the landscaping don't fly through, that's when we would have an issue. But we can certainly deal with that issue at that time and keep this on pace for,
I'm a little puzzled about why that wording was used, what the intent was. But I guess my reading of it, it says, presented to the planning commission for approval prior to issuance of a final certificate of occupancy. Well, that's after the project is completely up. So were they saying they wanted to have one more look and
make sure the trees are
have them
planted.
there? Or-
Yeah.
It doesn't exactly say that, but I guess that's the only thing that makes sense as far as tying that to the certificate of occupancy.
Could we add in there something to the effect that Mr. Johnson would plant, whether it be pine trees, maple trees, trees within our city tree list, where he has to he's gonna have to have a setback from the state of Minnesota on County Road 9, because if you're west on 5, you're gonna have to be able to see the
Oh, yeah.
traffic coming.
Yeah.
So that's gonna restrict where he can start, he has said, and then just say, well, we'll put in whatever. My problem is, I see this going, if we don't do something, I see this as being another future problem, and I'm trying to avoid the problem.
What if we were to say the revised landscaping plan shall be shared with the planning commission?
Right.
And just
Leave it at that.
leave it at that they're gonna be aware of what you're planning out there. If they have any comments, they can certainly share them with you, and if you think that, yeah, that's a good point, then you can elect to go ahead and add in additional trees, but
We would be agreeable to that.
Let's go that avenue.
Okay.
So then, it's 4D, to take out the last sentence and say the revised landscaping plan shall be shared with the planning commission. Period, right? 5B has the same last sentence, so as well do the same thing there, shared with the planning commission. There's one other, it would be two other things that I wanna touch on. 4A would be, illustrating proof of parking for 15 employees. I think we're specific here, but we're saying 15 employees, we're not saying how I don't know if there's a better way to word it, dependent on how many employees they're gonna have. I think that's kind of like the idea, up to 15, but how do we, I was wondering about that, if that's a big thing, if making it 15, you were saying that maybe,
Right, so my understanding from the Planning and Zoning Commission is that, because we, potentially, would be in the 10 to 15 range, that all they were looking for is for us to modify the plan sheets to show that we would have the capacity for 15 parking stalls on the property, and then, however many employees we ultimately end up with in the second phase, that is then how many spots we would actually be required to build.
So in the current plans, you have 10 spots?
Yeah,
or
we
no?
have 10
We have
spots,
10
yes,
spots.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I understood the same thing, is that they just wanna make sure you've got a spot for
Yeah,
those extra
yeah,
ones,
yeah.
if they're needed.
Yeah, not that that was, a requirement, that the
Right.
parking lot would be for 15.
Okay, anything else?
there was one other thing, I have to find it though.
Okay. And you have the wording down that would be on those two items?
Yep, there were no changes to the parking then, correct?
No, right,
Right.
correct.
Yes, yep. I've got the other.
4B and 5B, okay.
Okay, I'm not sure what it's under, so I gotta find the number. It was talking about the number of UPS trucks that are allowed out there.
Oh, yeah, it does not, I don't think it does not talk about the maximum number in a day. That is not in here at all. I didn't find it, I read it twice, and if that's what you're looking for, it isn't in here.
It just says UPS and FedEx trucks would be
Right.
delivering as opposed to semi-trucks.
Right.
No numbers.
Item 8.
Item 8, I just found it, yeah.
Okay, item 8.
So it says that, but I mean, I don't wanna limit them if they're having a whole bunch of trucks coming in, UPS trucks coming in, because business is great. I don't wanna limit that.
Where do you,
So, well, I mean,
Where are you reading?
where are you
Michelle?
reading? Where are
Item
you?
8.
I'm just on number 8.
8 what? 8A,
It
8B,
would
8C,
be-
8D?
yeah,
8, just the number it's on.
number 8.
The second page of the resolution. Second page.
So is that part of the resolution, or is that just part of,
Nope, it's part of
it's
the.
part of the resolution?
Part of the resolution, not part
So-
of the, yeah, it is.
And I
So
think,
it's stating what they're stating, I just don't wanna be restrictive in there.
no, and I think the word anticipates kind of takes that
Anticipates.
hard numbers out. I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's just what they're anticipating is
Yep.
4 to 5. If there's more, there's more.
Yep.
That's just what they're thinking.
Yeah, there's no solid bottom or top number.
No.
And usually UPS and FedEx deliver once a day. It's not like they're gonna
Yeah.
allow there 10 times a day. It'd be great if they would.
I just
Right,
wanted
Matt?
to make sure that that wasn't limiting.
Right.
I just
No,
wanted to bring it up.
I don't believe it is at all. Okay, any other items?
Is there anything else in there that you have serious concerns with?
I mean, I guess the biggest issue, when we left the Planning and Zoning Commission was just the resolution of the trees along,
Mhm.
Highway 5, and, how restrictive that was going to be. The other issue that was discussed a lot was the disposal of the vines.
Yep.
And I believe that got written into the resolution that, we would have like a week to 10
Yep.
days to
Yep.
remove
10
the
days.
vines from the site. And,
Mhm.
I guess, we thought that night of the Planning and Zoning Commission that would be sufficient for us to get through the harvest and get them removed and,
So you're pretty good with all this?
yeah.
Then I'm pretty good with all this.
Yeah.
Okay, you've heard the changes then that would be made in item the 4D and 5D, and the wording was changed. Those are the only two changes, I believe.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution 59, 2018, approving approving conditional use permit and site plan approval for a hydroponic hops growing and processing facility at the northeast quadrant of Highway 5 and CASA 9.
Second.
With, changes.
With changes,
With-
changes
Could-
indicated.
Could some, either the mayor or the administrator read what the changes?
How the wording is gonna change on 4D and 5D.
So 4B will read revision of sheet C-108 landscaping plan to illustrate placement of landscape treatment on the proposed berm pursuant to a plan developed by a professional with the goal of yada, yada, yada. The revised, moving on down to the last sentence, the revised landscaping plan shall be shared with the planning commission, period. So that's 4B. Then moving down to item 5B. Landscaping treatment shall be employed adjacent to Trunk Highway 5 to soften the appearance of building bulk/massing. Proposed landscaping shall be shared with the planning commission, period.
Okay?
Got it.
Everyone clear on that? All right, resolution 59-2018 was introduced by Councilmember Yashewski, was seconded by Councilmember Hattlestead. Resolution 59-2018 is a resolution approving a conditional use permit and site plan approval for hydroponic hops growing and processing facility at the northeast quadrant of Highway 5 and County State Aid Highway 9. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call. Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Cowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes.
Councilmember Hattlestead.
Yes.
Councilmember Yashewski.
Yes.
All in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have
a good evening.
Coming, Matt.
All right. Unfinished business? Yeah. Approval to deny Economic Development Committee's recommendation to fund the South Central Regional Small Business Development Center.
Make a motion to approve the Economic Development Committee's recommendation to fund the South Central Regional Small Business Development Center's 2019 funding request in the amount of $500.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Hattlestead, to approve the Economic Development Committee's recommendation to fund the South Central Regional Small Business Development Center's 2019 funding request in amount of $500. Open for discussion.
Just one question. It says in the letter the request is for 1,000. Is there a reason the economic committee's to
We
500?
wanted to give something.
Okay, that's fair enough.
500 beats zero. We saved $500.
And then in the next resolution, we wanted to keep it fair.
Okay, on this resolution, or on this question then, for the South Central Regional Small Business Development Center, any further questions, discussion?
So it's for, the request is, we're approving $500 on recommendation of the EDA.
Correct,
They did ask for $1,000.
they did, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. I'm not, has EDA funded that organization before? I'm wondering if, I can't remember what the discussion was. Amy, do you have any?
SBDC, you have not funded, at least last year you did not
Okay.
fund anything.
And I think that was the thought of, rather than going 1,000, just get the foot in the door with the 500.
And they gave Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, they voted to give them $500, so they decided
Right.
to give the same amount.
Same amount, all right.
I think at the time last year, if I remember right, we did not fund it because we felt that the league had some of the same programs as the,
I don't recall.
I know
the
we did
reasons.
not fund it last year, but I think maybe 4 years ago, I wasn't on the council, but I was on the EDA, and I know I'm pretty sure we recommended it now. Whether the council approved it, I don't know.
Okay?
but
anything-
last year it was not.
Okay, no more discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Item 12. And that is the Economic Development Committee's recommendation for Fund Southern Minnesota Initiative Fund for 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve Economic Development Committee's recommendation to fund Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation's 2019 funding request in the amount of $500.
Is there a second?
Second, I guess.
Motion by Councilmember Cowell, second by Councilmember Highland to approve the Economic Development Committee's recommendation to fund Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation's 2019 funding request in the amount of $500. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Moving on to new business. This is the housing study, and I believe Amy Newsom and Pat Melvin are going to present that to us. Good evening, Amy.
Good evening. Pat and I will tag team on the housing study,
All right.
if that's okay. We had invited the people who put the
Yeah.
housing study together, and they were unable to make it this evening, and we decided we just wanted to move forward with it
Sure.
rather than wait until next month. So I will start, if that's okay, Pat.
Sure, go right ahead.
I just wanted to point out some highlights. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read through this study and take a look at some of the survey responses and all that good stuff. But I wanted to point out some of the recommendations, because that's one of the things I had asked for when we did a housing study, that they didn't just provide us with data. I could have gotten that for you. I wasn't that interested in the data, like the cost of houses and the number of employees in town. I wanted to know what their recommendations were. Once they looked at our data, I wanted to see recommendations from them, and they did do a good job of putting it in here. Not that I agree with everything that's in here, but I think that's why we hire an outside source. Because otherwise, it's good to have somebody from the outside come in and take a look at the city of Arlington and say, this is where I see your weaknesses are in housing, and this is my recommendation for you. So some of the recommendations were to provide financial support, tools, resources to potential home buyers. That's something we're not pushing a lot, and it's good to have somebody come in and say, hey, USDA offers low interest loans, Minnesota Housing Authority. That's something we can get up there on the website, get out on Facebook, so that people know about different loan options to purchase a home in Arlington. Their next recommendation was to create affordable housing opportunities. Something that came out of this housing study is that there's a gap in the middle class starting to show in Arlington, and that is common nationwide. That isn't unique to Arlington. So there's a big demand for rental housing, and it was good to see that reiterated. It's something I hear when I do business visits, because there are people in even good paying jobs in Arlington who are looking just for rentals, not necessarily to buy a home. One thing they addressed was a lot of our employers, like the school and the nursing home, there's a big discrepancy in pay. Some of those jobs are starting at $11 an hour, and some of them are making $50,000 a year. We need to have housing options for both ends of the spectrum, and I know we're lacking in rental units right now. So that's something we need to look at. We need to focus on those apartment buildings. And one thing we can do with that, and I shared this information today on the city's Facebook page, that grant is out there for market rate rentals again. Minnesota, it was a deed program, and now it's through Minnesota Housing Authority. And I did follow up. That's something that we presented at the EDA meeting. So I followed up with one developer I knew was interested in the program. We'll see if they're wanting to submit an application this time around, but that's something we need to focus on. Workforce housing, that goes along with the market rate rentals. We need to be able to offer that. Senior housing, if you look at our demographics, we know that we have a lot of seniors, even in the rural area, people who live on the farm, who are now maybe not wanting to take care of that farm place anymore, but want to move into town. We need to have options for them. So we need to sit down with developers and talk about our needs, and now that we have a housing study, we can do that. Because a lot of banks will require that you have a housing study before they will lend money to a developer to put up like a spec home or apartment complex. Remove development barriers was their next category of recommendations, and they said land. Make sure that you have land that is shovel ready, properly zoned, guided, has utilities. And that's what you had with the lot we sold to Matt. That was pretty much shovel ready. Easy enough to put the sewer and water connections out there. And that's why Green Owl's been successful. They had shovel ready lots in the industrial park. Make sure it's zoned properly. Update zoning within the city. I think that's one thing that's come out of our Choose Arlington is some zoning issues in the city. Develop a regional housing committee. There are some through Region 9 that we could work with someone down there possibly. The Arlington marketing campaign. They said that they thought that was a good idea, that we're working with the University of Minnesota on the Choose Arlington project. And a lot of things that came out of, Kurt and I were in the same study circle for Choose Arlington. A lot of the things that we had talked about in that study circle showed up in this housing study. Promote and maintain amenities. What's desirable about the city of Arlington? You know, parks, open spaces, the walk, the trail out to the Sportsman's Park. Those are all things that you need to maintain, and that is part of economic development. Prepare an economic development plan. I know that's not something the city of Arlington has, and maybe that's something we want to talk about for the future. One of the things they pointed out is that healthcare is going to continue to grow, and we need to look at that when we're looking at housing, and your hospital is expanding right now. So they hit the nail on the head with that, even though they were only in Arlington one time. But they did look at that. Like I said, that pay gap, remember, you have people working in the hospital for $11 an hour probably, and then you have a lot that are making $50,000 or more per year. We need to have housing options for all of those people. Something that I looked at that I haven't had a chance to talk to Bob Streeter about is I saw a discrepancy in the amount of money someone needs to make to buy a home in Arlington. At one point in here it said, did you catch that too?
Yeah, I got that.
It
They're
said that,
off a little bit.
yeah, that you need to make at least over $80,000 to buy a home. But then in another spot I found where it said you need to make like $37,000. So there's a discrepancy in how much income you have to have. But it was a good point that we need to have rental too for those who don't make that much money. So that's something I think Arlington needs to take a look at, is more rentals. Yep, here's the discrepancy. You have to earn at least $31,280 to have a $107,000 mortgage. So they said two different things in the housing study. Another thing I really liked is that they put the commute map in here. That was in the appendix, and it shows that you have 505 people from the west coming into town. You have 152 people staying in your community, and then 988, just Arlington, are going towards the metro area. And I know if you look at Civc County as a whole, there's about 6,000 people that head towards the metro area every day to go to work.
6,000.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yep, there's a lot of people that are heading to the metro area. And to me, that you can look at Arlington in two ways. We can either work on economic development, which I talked to Bob Streeter about. You know, we don't have land right now. You either need to have more land and you need to have industrial growth where we would have more jobs in town here, or market yourself as a bedroom community and try to pull those people that might be living in Chaska, Chanhassen right now and have them move to Arlington. Those are kind of your options for housing and for growth for the city of Arlington. Those are just some of the things I wanted to point out. They have the good at the very end of the appendix. They have the recommendations. One of the things, I agree with a lot of the things. They had a lot of good recommendations. There's one thing that they wanted us to work on having, work with deed to get a lot shovel ready. I would not do that. In Gaylord, just my past experience, they have a lot that they had shovel ready. It was owned by a private individual. I believe they put in about $30,000 to get that deed shovel ready. And that was before I worked for them. That's probably been on the market 10 years.
That was a residential lot?
No, that was a
Commercial lot.
commercial lot.
Private owner.
Mm-hmm. Private owner. So I'm not a big fan of that. I think Green Isle, we did not do that with the lots in Green Isle. They were not deed shovel ready, but they were shovel ready.
And I just had a couple of observations, in addition to what Amy has mentioned. I was really very happy to see where they said development processes within the city are not a deterrent for new residential development. And just within the past month, I had an individual who came to the counter, and he happened to be an investor in some of the
Builder.
properties, builder. And we started talking, and he admitted some, concern about the price of the building permits in Arlington. And he said, well, it's so much cheaper here in Green Isle and these different places. And so I talked with him a little further. We ended up running the numbers, gave him what the cost was for a $200,000 house, and it's a little over $2,000. He said, well, this isn't the number. And I said, well, that's what it is. And he was amazed at the low cost for permit fees to build a $200,000 home. And I think that's part of it. I think is, and I know Amy has mentioned before that our sack and whack fees at one time everybody thought were so much higher than our neighbors. So I think, as a result of that, I think what we'll do is we'll start putting some of that information into the newsletter that goes out with some of the utility bills, just to say, on a $200,000 house, here's the permit fees, and just over and over again until people start to realize that it's not as expensive as maybe other people are saying that it is out
Yeah,
Or
for
their
some reason.
perception, yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, their perception is expensive, so we don't even go and look.
Yes.
Because Joe told me it's too much. 3,000, 3 times
Yeah.
cheaper. They could be totally wrong, but it chases people away.
Yeah.
The other places on Facebook and other social media too, and our website to promote,
Yeah.
what our fees actually are up front.
Right, because the word out there is that Arlington is really high. I heard that a couple years ago already, before I was Arlington's EDA director, that your fees were so high compared to everybody else. And I'm not sure how that rumor got started, but
I think
That's what's
Galen
out
and
there.
Green Isle started that rumor.
Yeah, more
probably.
More than likely.
And then there's another one, new housing developments may be more profitable in the next 5 to 10 years. And I take a look at, that we're seeing a decrease in Arlington's population. Can we wait the next 5 or 10 years for those numbers to come down before we start to do something? I think the answer is no. I think
No.
we need to do something now to try and, get that going. I think we saw in Green Isle how one person started doing something, then other things started to trickle in after that happened. If we can somehow get something to happen in Arlington and get a little momentum and a little excitement behind it, we could do a lot of different things. So, that's where I think that we're better off not to just sit and wait for it to happen, but to do everything we can to make it happen. Under some of the surveys, there was talk about creating low-income senior rental housing options. A lot of individuals, a lot of residents express concern with low-income housing, and I guess I would look, and I don't know if you're aware, Amy, of any other cities where they have done low-income housing where it's been successful and it hasn't been kind of a real challenge to the community in terms of.
Glencoe has some low-income housing. Do you know anything about that?
St. Peter has a ton.
St. Peter has a ton.
Okay.
St. Peter might be I know Glencoe has some too.
They've
St.
built
Peter,
in the last,
okay.
there's brand new apartment buildings and condos and
And some of
it's
those
all
are,
it's all low income housing. It's all Section 8.
it's Section 8, because there's low income and then there's Section 8 too.
Yeah, they need a place to live too.
Yeah. And that's where if we can learn from others about, you know, how they did it and how they did it successfully, perhaps that's something that we can combine in with the senior housing and with the rental housing, so that we don't go too far on one type of housing, but we keep it balanced. So part two, where they talk about key takeaways, demand is relatively low for new residential development. I wasn't sure about having that statement in there, but demand is relatively low for new residential development. I mean, we haven't had a lot of demand, but if the price was right, I think the demand would be high.
How do you get the right price when it costs X number of dollars a square foot to build a house?
Green Isle's
And-
doing
and-
it,
Pardon?
Green Isle, Gaylord, other towns are building,
Henderson, yeah.
all around us.
200,000 is the
Okay,
magic
why aren't they
number.
building here?
That's a good question.
That's a good
Because
question.
everyone thinks your fees are too high.
That's
probably.
We also in the EDA talked about getting the local contractors together with either Amy and Pat and whatever, to find out why they aren't building spec homes here. What's their holdback? Why aren't you doing that? Because if they don't want to, we can go elsewhere. I mean, we need to give those people their first opportunity at it. But if they don't wanna build anything, we got two options. Well, they don't wanna do it, so we're not gonna do it.
Well, they've had an opportunity for 12 years since the
But-
last house was built here.
Right, but at least, maybe there's some roadblocks that we don't know about. So by sitting down and talking with them, you know, maybe they'll tell us why they're not. Maybe we can make one little change that they'd be more perceptive to building a spec home. I think once one of them built one and they sold it, that might catch on a little bit, but we gotta build that one.
Yeah, somebody builds one and they sell it and make money on it,
There's gonna be more to come to build,
maybe more coming.
Yeah. But we gotta get number one built.
Ben, we went to that little seminar thing on Gibbon, Winthrop, where the guy talked about what was going on, and, you know, he said like Arlington, Green Isle, Gaylord, Winthrop, we're kind of in a nice area because we're like within 35 or 40 minutes drive from just about anything. And I was at a wedding Friday night at the Minnesota Valley Country Club in Bloomington, and got to talking to people, and someone says, "Where do you live?" I live in Arlington. "Oh my God, how long did it take you to get here?" And I said, "About 45 minutes." "Well, I live in Bloomington, it took me 45 minutes to get here." But I could drive 60 miles an hour all the way, and they were driving 10 miles an hour on 494. So it's just all a matter of perception, you know, yeah, we're way out here, but travel time, you know, isn't that far.
I think people from this area have realized that. That's why so many are working in the cities. I think we have to convince people from the metro area. Somehow we need to get the word out there to get them to come this way.
I think Jim and I agree, we should get that, I think his name was Ben Wilson?
Yes.
Ben Winston, but I can't remember where he's, come
I
and
got
talk
his
to
card
us.
someplace.
Winchester.
Winchester?
Yep.
I know it was about, okay.
Yep. And actually, we were working on getting him scheduled. Shannon was working on getting him scheduled just prior to our departure, so we will get back on that.
Let's get on that, because if we could get a group of people, whether they be builder, residents, the different commissions, the councils, to listen to what he has to say. He has a neat
And-
message.
Yeah, and he gets you kinda pumped up.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I was fired up. You know, and some of the takeaways I got was, yeah, we're in a unique position. We're 35 to 40 minutes from Hutchinson, Mankato, New Ulm, Eden Prairie, Minnetonka. You know, we're not that far away. And Friday night proved it again. It took me 45 minutes to get to the country club from Arlington, and one of the guys lived on the other side of Bloomington, took him 45 minutes to get there.
Yep, yep.
So I'd rather be looking at trees and cows and cornfield and bean fields driving 60 miles an hour than bumper to bumper traffic looking at taillights 10 miles an hour. But that's just me, I don't know, maybe some other people are different.
No, that's a good point, though. Very good. All right.
Choose Arlington.
Choose Arlington.
I still think it comes back to, you know, the chicken and egg situation. You know, people want more businesses to come to Arlington, but to have the businesses come to Arlington, you need the people to support those businesses. And this has been my mantra for 3.5 years, is if you wanna sell hats, you need a lot of heads. And, you know, right now, if we want businesses to come to Arlington, we need the people to support the businesses. Cause I don't think it worked, it could, but it's
I
been
mean,
tough.
look
Well, we
at the
can't have our
housing
population
study.
drop 5.1%
Right,
and expect people to come and build businesses. Because they're gonna think, what happens if it drops another 5.1? Those numbers don't mix.
And along those lines, Jim, I think it would be worthwhile to have a discussion with Otto's, which just shut down their restaurant, to better understand why they did. And, you know, if they didn't have enough people coming, or was it something else that caused them to close down? Because it'd be interesting to know. Cause that's what people are asking for, is more restaurants, and here's an example of another restaurant that came into town, but I think everybody assumes they didn't have enough business, or they weren't able to cover their expenses, and so they're gone. Was
I
that
have
the
my
case?
theories, I'll discuss with you later sometime.
Okay,
but
okay,
That's just me,
yeah.
I have a lot of theories.
Okay, any other comments regarding the housing study? Thanks, Amy.
I think we are looking for a motion to go ahead and approve it, unless,
Okay.
I'll make a motion to
There we
approve the
go.
Arlington housing assessment following review and discussion.
You got me.
Motion by Councilmember Hattlestead, second by Councilmember Yashewski to approve the Arlington housing assessment following a review and discussion, which we had. And that motion was seconded by Councilmember Yashewski, I believe, right? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Item 14.
council members, with regards to the 2019 budget, which is due at the end of this month, I would like to go ahead and schedule a workshop. Well, I shouldn't say it, not a workshop, but I would like to
Special
schedule a special council meeting on Tuesday, September 25th. And I'm going to ask to revise what's on the agenda. On the agenda, it reads 6:30. I'm wondering if I can move that meeting to 5 o'clock, if possible, to allow me to also participate in a marketing hometown Arlington after that meeting, probably at 6:30. So at that meeting, we would go over the 2019 budget, and then we would also set the preliminary levy for 2019. Again, that preliminary levy is a max, a top, and then over the next couple of months, we'll work on looking at budget items, including the police officer position and other items, to bring that number back down to what we think is a reasonable number for final approval in December.
25th at 5 o'clock, work with everyone? Okay, we don't need a motion on that, I don't think. Do we, or do we? No. Okay, consensus then, 5 o'clock on the 25th, special council meeting. All right, moving into item 15. And Mr. Wickworth, would you want to come forward and cover the next few items? We got some curb repair.
Yeah, trying to sneak some curb repair in along Second Avenue Northwest, where the road construction is gonna happen. Start tomorrow. They're gonna edge mill tomorrow and then hopefully pave next week, barring weather issues, but hopefully before they pave, we could get some curbs repaired. The corner of Chandler and Second is in horrible shape, and then it runs south along Second, almost 100 feet. That should be repaired.
That needs to be done before the blacktop, before the
Before the
overlay?
pavement, it should
Okay.
be, yeah, so he doesn't risk ripping up the edge of the pavement.
Okay, and they can comply that quickly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there was a couple other bad spots that are broken up and that hold water. Next to the church property and then across from the church property as well. I just thought, we're redoing that road, it'd be nice to, as far as I know, the CIP budget, we have some money for curb replacement.
Which church,
St. Paul's
St.
Church.
Paul's, okay.
Yep.
There's money in your budget yet?
As far as I understand, the CIP, there's $5,000 every year for curb replacement, curb repair.
What we'll be doing is we'll be looking at the capital improvement plan further down here under item 17. The money that traditionally gets allocated over into the CIP that has not occurred as of yet, because in the past it's my understanding that Liza preferred to have the CIP approved by the council and then have the money transferred after that. So pending review of the capital improvement plan for 2018, that capital improvement money would be transferred into the funds, but we have not consumed that amount at this point. So that money would be
So
available.
it would be available.
Correct.
Well, I'll
And
make
even in one of our line items for street maintenance materials, we have, I think, $15,000 in that yet, if we would have to pull from that at all,
Great.
so.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the curb repair on the state contract from Paragon Company, $5,300.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Hattlestead to approve the quotation from Paragon Company for curb repair. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. And then the picnic tables.
Yeah, we're starting, the Parks Committee wants to start, replacing picnic tables out at the Sportsman's Park. This would be the first, I believe there's ultimately 12 that have to be replaced, so this will be the first 4 of those 12. From the wooden tables to match what we have in our other parks.
All the other parks got the metal tables.
Yep, the steel, rubber coated.
And what's gonna be done with the wooden ones that are out there?
It was suggested at the last Parks meeting to inquire with the Fair Board if they would want to, we could essentially donate it to the Fair Board if they need more picnic tables.
Are the picnic tables in good condition out there right now, or?
Most of them are in pretty good condition, yeah.
Because I think we've been getting rid of the ones that are really bad, replacing them. And then we do have some that need maintenance yet, the ones that are out at Sportsman's
Right.
that are wood, that they're but they're good, in good shape.
Yeah, they're in pretty good shape yet. So,
So do we, in the other parks, do we have any tables that are maybe in more need than the ones at the Sportsman's Park?
well, yeah, and that's why they wanted in the CIP to extend the picnic table purchasing for another 4 years. Because on top of the 12 we would purchase at Sportsman's, they thought probably 4 more at Four Seasons yet, because they don't feel they ever got caught up with replacement there. There's still some older tables.
Were you at the last park board meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought we discussed at Sportsman's, because it's out in the woods, the wooden tables
Mhm.
that were under shelter, and remain in good condition, use them for a few years just because they're.
I had brought that up earlier in the year before I wanted to purchase any at all. I just said it kind of adds to the aesthetics of the park to
I
have wood
remember that
tables,
word-
not
the
metal
word being
ones,
used.
but
And I thought that
I have,
we had talked about or agreed on doing that.
I thought we decided the money was there, so we wanted to purchase it.
I guess my question is, if there's nothing wrong with the picnic tables, to be real honest, why are we spending $2,983.40 other than to just spend $2,983.40? I know it's not you, it's them, but if there's nothing wrong with the tables, I'm at a little loss why we're spending this kind of money. And that's why I asked these other parks, are their tables in worse condition? Because I'd much rather repair something that's in dire need versus a picnic
Well-
table that, oh, it's in pretty good shape, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have some that have been bent up and just some older picnic tables at Four Seasons that don't match any of the other ones. If we're looking to
Well-
keep everything matching.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with matching, I have a problem with giving away good picnic tables that could last maybe 2 more years.
For 10
If they're
more
not a
years.
hazard and they work, well, the other ones might look better, well, yeah.
For what it's worth, I did take a drive out there and looked at those wooden ones too, and I think they're in
Good
pretty good shape.
Yeah,
I really do. I was surprised to see that they were replacing.
I would like to make a motion to deny purchase of the four picnic tables, for Four Seasons Park, or I mean for, Sportsman's Park.
I would second that.
Motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Hattlestead to deny the purchase of picnic tables. And those are the ones that would have been put in Sportsman's Park, I'm sorry. The cost would have been $2,983.40. Is there more discussion?
You know, they could be painted, do they need paint? You said you looked at them.
Not very
They don't
much.
even need much
They're under the
paint.
shelter there for the most part,
look
most of
good.
them are.
And
Yeah.
it only makes sense to use them as long as we, and Kirby likes the aesthetic they bring.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a wooden picnic table looks better out there in the woods. Okay, you all heard the motion to deny. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Purchase is denied.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Kirby.
Thanks, Kirby.
Item 17, the capital improvement plan.
Council members, included in your packet is the 2018-2023 Arlington Capital Improvement Plan. On there, a number of items are identified for funds. I have not had the opportunity to get the prioritization completed for all the different departments. You will see that there are some items that are listed on there that are maybe color-coded because they are being paid for by several different departments. Prime example is the pickup truck that's being purchased is being purchased by the Parks Department as well as the maintenance as well as in part the cemetery. So going through, you can see that we have not spent a considerable amount for infrastructure and capital improvements here in 2018. Some of the more significant expenditures are the overlay of Second Avenue, which is going to be starting here shortly. We also are working on replacing streetlights throughout the city at a cost of about $212,000, of which $100,000 will be a interest-free loan through Minnesota Valley Electric. So, I would invite council members if they have any questions on the capital improvement plan. I would be happy to answer those at this time. Otherwise, if the council is satisfied to go ahead and to approve this capital improvement plan, which will then also allow money to be authorized for transfer to capital improvement projects, which will be in the amount of $190,000.
I'm glad that we've got the loan. That's the first I heard, or I remember hearing that it was received, or we.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that we have received it. I have been in discussion with Joe Green from Minnesota Valley Electric Co-op. He's aware that we're interested in working with him to secure that money.
Oh, okay.
So he knows that we are planning to go that route. But we don't have anything finalized or formal. I've simply put it in, budgeted for it in the capital improvement plan. So, but
I do see under maintenance, the last item is replace street painter at $10,000. I also see under parks, the last item is replace line painting machine. Are those one and the same?
No, well, I don't think.
Are there two separate?
I
Items?
think that those are probably the same items. Painting, yes, I do
I
believe
think on
those
the
are.
parks, well, I did a little research on the Titan 3100 line painting machine
Mm-hmm.
for the street department.
I wish Kirby was still here, he probably could.
Yeah, he said that it blew up and quit working. And
Yeah.
so I went down and looked at the machine, and apparently the pump has some internal issues. I went online and just did a quick search. Brand new replacement machine is around $4,900. I found one on eBay for $4,800 that looked similar for painting stripes. Now, they do also have a line painting machine for like baseball lines
Yeah,
and football, and stuff like that. So I don't know
I'm not sure.
the park, if it's two different ones or if it's one and the same.
Like a chalk liner, you mean?
Yeah.
That would be
Parks.
chocolate, that wouldn't be $10,000.
That wouldn't be $10,000.
That's a hand machine.
I'll say that maybe
You walk by that
$750.
Oh,
And I did find
Might be.
a place in Belle Plaine, something Johnson on Main Street that repairs Titan 3100
Huh.
line painters. Now, one thing I told Kirby, if they could just replace the pump, if the motor works, the hoses are good, the tires on the cart are good. If we could replace the pump or have it fixed for $1,000 or $2,000 and everything works fine.
That's better than
Yep.
10.
And I think one time in a street committee meeting or something, I kind of maybe suggested that. And if I remember correctly, Kirby said the machine wasn't worth putting money into.
It what?
The machine wasn't worth putting any money into. I don't know that for a fact. I'd want to probably, I'm not a line machine expert, but yeah,
I'm not either, but.
I would like to get a quote to fix the one we have. We might be
Yeah.
surprised how inexpensive it is.
And maybe somebody local like Roger Deedle might be able to
Yep.
take a look at it. I don't
Feedback
know.
coming over the mics, where's it coming from?
I don't know, I tried moving my mic.
Okay.
So anyhow, I would
Okay,
say
so
we should double check that.
double
number.
check that item, make sure it's not the same one, and then, of course, it sounds like we can, if it is the same item, the price can be dropped
Yes.
substantially.
Be $15,000 savings about.
Yeah.
So I think we could take that money and give the city council a pay raise.
We can't do that.
Oh,
We will in 2019.
okay, yes.
And that's retroactive back to 18 in January?
I don't like the fact that the groups did not prioritize their want list, because that's basically what this is.
Yeah.
Or their need list, right? They didn't prioritize anything. So, any of the groups.
Some of that's a wish list.
And that's,
Well, I mean, to me, I mean, you know, there's definitely needs, right, that I have to have to perform my job or to perform, to maintain the city or to maintain my department. And without priorities on there, whatever, I mean, I get that maybe where it's slated, the year that it's slated for is maybe their priority,
Could
but
that be done
is it or
for-
not?
For the next time we do this?
yeah, it certainly can be done. I can certainly get them to prioritize those numbers for you.
I mean, or is it a, you know, a need or a want, or is it a, that would also be helpful. I mean, I can look at things and say, oh yeah, but like you raised a good point, Shem. Is it a need that we get a brand new one? Or can we fix the one we have? You know?
And I guess those are some of the not concessions, but changes that have to be willing to make once we start whittling that levy amount down.
Basically, what I did on the capital improvement plan is I solicited items from the department head or the supervisor and then inputted them into the spreadsheet. But yeah, as we're starting to get down to crunch time, there will have to be a lot of questions asked about, you know, how did they arrive at that number? You know, some of these numbers, I think some of these numbers that we put in here are unknown what the cost is, but it's in essence just kind of a place saver. But it could be significantly higher or significantly less than what is reflected on paper. And until we get to that point where, you know, if it's something coming up in 19 or 20 and we're getting ready and we actually go out for quotes, we won't know what that.
Right.
I mean, I guess the way I feel about it is if I approve it the way it is right now, it's pretty much saying yes to everything that's on this piece of paper.
And note what.
Well, I'd like to see that.
What I'm asking you to do is we're focusing on 2018 because that's our current year, and like I mentioned earlier, the funds that usually get transferred into the capital improvement account have not been transferred. Typically, they occur earlier in the year, and typically we approve a capital improvement plan earlier in the year. That didn't happen this year because there was some miscommunication. There was a lot of items that some individuals had listed on there, and with the turnover between Kirby and Tony, and you know, maybe with some things with John coming on new as well, there was some things that were on the 2008 CIP plan which really weren't reflective of what the current person had for priorities.
So what we're looking at is to approve 2018 CIP and to authorize a transfer is what we're doing. So we're not
Correct.
technically approving the capital improvement plan, the 5-year plan, the CIP. We're just approving 2018 to finish out this year, correct?
Yep.
Correct, and I
Okay.
apologize because yes, it does read 2019 on there, but it should be really 2018 that we're looking and focusing on right now.
So,
2019 will come about as part of our budget for 2019.
one of the things that are on here is carpet replacement. I know we talked a little bit about that last meeting. So whether or not we do carpet or whether or not we talk with the library board and see if they wanted to do something like a tile linoleum type floor instead, just because of the mustiness in there
yeah,
already.
We have a meeting tomorrow, is it tomorrow, but I don't think they're in favor of that, but we can bring it up tomorrow.
Okay, what,
And
I don't think they're in favor of that, I think they want the carpet, but,
carpet?
Probably
If I
for
could-
quietness.
yeah, yep, and it was the quietness, and it was, kids walking in and out, especially in the winter for, with their boots on and stuff, and then getting water on the floor.
Well, that's what
Slipping.
our thought was too, because it'd get really dirty and stuff, bring it, track it and all that stuff right on the carpet.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I can bring it up tomorrow, though.
I mean, that was just a question, I know that's in here or whatever. I mean, regardless, I mean, some kind of floor replacement is gonna
It's gonna happen.
maybe be done down there,
And I
so.
did ask that question, I apologize that I didn't follow up and communicate back to you. I did ask Kathy about that, and yeah, she said that they did take a look at a hard surface, but in the end, they opted to go with carpet, and what they're going to do is they're going to go with carpet squares, so that if a stain or something bad happens, you can simply pop out one
Sure.
square and replace it versus having to tear it all out.
Makes sense. Okay.
And a
the-
lot of these things have already been done, correct?
Some of them
Some
have,
of them
correct,
have.
and they've been able to pull from budget money or different things, so.
I'll make a motion to approve, do I wanna say 2018?
2018.
2018 capital improvement plan and authorize transfers.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hattlestead, second by Councilmember Batchor to approve the 2018 capital improvement plan and authorize transfers. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Moving on to miscellaneous business, Councilmember committee updates. Are there any?
The cable commission, and I think that, did everybody get an email or text us last week in regard to the,
I don't. think
contract?
I think it was just,
we are going to extend that contract for another year. We had talked about, other options, and until we can maybe get all our ducks in a row, we're going to stay with that contract for another year.
okay, anything else?
Just a couple things, we see the 88 Chevy pickup truck is out front for sale. I talked with John Saski a little bit and Administrator Melvin about marketing it. And I think if we're on the same page, Pat, you were gonna put together a sheet to put in the window, the equipment, the mileage, 11,000 mile, 1988 Chevy pickup, four-wheel drive, everything works. Here it is, you're gonna bid it the way you see it. To be sealed bids, probably open in about 3 weeks. Give everybody an opportunity with a starting minimum bid of $3,000.
Gonna put that in the paper also?
I think we should run a little ad in the
Yeah.
Shopper or the Shopper Enterprise, our
Facebook,
website,
Facebook.
Craigslist. And
Facebook is good.
so I think the truck will bring silly money.
Jim with a sandwich board on Main Street?
I did,
Pardon?
Put you in a sandwich board on Main Street?
That would be me, yeah. Also Kirby, this morning he talked about maybe, getting the 88 Chevy pickup truck, the one they're gonna replace with the new Ford. Maybe get that ready to market.
88?
98,
98.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
98 Chevy, the white one with the Boss V plow on it. Kinda told him the same scenario, get it cleaned up.
Yep.
Park it out front here. I think, he said he had a couple contractors approach him how much the city wanted for it. Well,
do sealed bids again.
yeah, have to do sealed bids and, it's only got 104,000 miles on it, so I think it'll be a very desirable unit. And again, with that one, I think we should have a starting bid of $5,000 to $6,000. Does that make sense, Adam?
Well, if it includes the plow, yeah,
Got a V
Yeah.
plow,
Yeah, I mean,
Boss
that's-
V plow,
that's worth,
104,000 miles. So anyhow, great little activity there. So anyhow, I think that's all I had, other than the, this line painter.
Okay. I attended a meeting, Highway 212 Coalition in Glencoe, last Friday, and, there were like 32 people there. It is a very energetic and interesting group. Funding is getting closer especially for the, Carver to Cologne leg. And, what they've done now is they're putting on some pressure to get funding all the way to Norwood Young America. And they were out to Washington DC last Thursday and lobbying for federal funds. So, with all these projects, they get planned and then it's just a matter of waiting for the funding. And it looks like things are coming together. It really does. So, there'll be something happening there, hopefully within a few years. Okay, anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Take it down.
Wow.
Motion by Councilmember Highland, second by Councilmember Batchor to adjourn the meeting at 8:48. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried.